Hey, folks. Welcome to Dow's Weekly Digest. So glad you're able to join us today here. The things that make me different are the things that make me, me. Now, that's not cowboy wisdom. I'll share with you a little later on who that comes from there. My theme this week I was thinking of was connection, fellowship, community. While I was thinking about that, I come across a couple wonderments. One of them was drones. You know, drones are being used for everything. Drones are used by firemen, and they're used to kind of overview the fire. But this stage is maybe the next stage. These drones are equipped with equipment so they can go into the fire and they can help suppress it. So they can go into a building and maybe through infrared and everything, see if there's anyone there, see where the hot spots are, see where the fire is going, and then, like I say, it's got this suppressant spray that will actually be used to help suppress that fire. So then the firemen themselves can go in there. Isn't that something? Harley Davidson is coming out with an electric bicycle. They're going to introduce it in November, and it's going to look like the very first motorcycle that Harley came out with, but it is a bicycle. That's a wonderment. I had a couple recollections, and one was, we're in the fall, and it's Saturday, and for years and years and years, LaDonna and I, we've had this connection, fellowship, community, and I'm speaking of this, folks, that on that Saturday, we would get ready for Cornhusker, Nebraska football. Did you know they got their name from a Lincoln newspaper man? He got calling them the Cornhuskers. Before that, they were called the Bug Eaters. The Bug Eaters, folks. The bug eater they were speaking of was a bat, which was a bug eater that you could find around Nebraska there, around the cornfields. That's what they were named. So you can see where probably everyone kind of accepted that a lot more than they would the bug eaters. The tradition of Nebraska football, you know, Nebraska doesn't have a professional team at all. They pay those coaches over $9 million. So they're paying as much for maybe some professional coaches. But that's what they pay these coaches in Nebraska football. Well, an example again of this connection, fellowship, community, just last week, LaDonna, my wife, she's speaking to her mom. Now, Laverne is over 90 years old. And of course, one of the questions, and it's kind of normal this time of year, Laverne will ask, is the game going to be on TV where you're at? And at that point, LaDonna was able to tell her, yes, we're able to watch the game. We're not going to have to go out anywhere to go watch the game. We're going to be able to watch it. Of course, that made Grandma feel real good that we're going to be able to do that there. But you can see that community of us there. The month of November, Thanksgiving, big week for us Cornhusker fans. And the rivalry there. Over the years in the past, it was Nebraska and Oklahoma. And then as they changed the different conferences they were in, it became Nebraska and the Colorado Buffaloes. And now, folks, for the last few years, it's been Nebraska-Iowa, a rivalry there. Very much a example of that connection. Again, wherever we lived, wherever we were, we'd be able to connect of the fellowship and be with the community. In fact, here in Rapid City, folks, on a Saturday, man, I'll see some red shirts. We'll see some Nebraska Cornhuskers. And of course, you kind of put the old thumbs up and the connection that we have there. So that was one connection that I had. Another one goes further back in my youth. I'd just get out of school, grab my stuff, and I'd head for the field. Baseball field. And we'd meet there, and we'd play workup. Workup kind of goes like this. You'd have three batters. When an out would be made, than that particular person that the out was made on. So if they were out at second base, let's say, that runner was out. That runner would go to right field. Everybody would shift, and the pitcher would now be a batter. So you always had three batters. Everybody got to play all the positions. Everybody got to bat. No scores were kept. No errors were kept. But you could hear a lot of boys. When someone made a good play, everybody would go, ooh, wow, wow. We didn't keep track of balls and strikes. It was just until you hit the ball. Work up. Man, it was fun. But there was no time limit on it until it got dark and we all had to go home. Definitely, we connected. We had that fellowship. And some of my friends today are still from that community, folks. So those were some recollections that I had. Let's look at some cowboy wisdom and see how maybe that relates. It's not enough that you know how to ride. You gotta know how to fall. And our ups and downs of our life's past, we're riding along, but sometimes we might come and have a fall. We gotta know how to do that. As the cowboy would say, what? Get right back up on it. Get right back up there. So, cowboy wisdom. You might be a Lutheran. You might be a Lutheran if you meet another Lutheran. And after you're talking a while, you ask the question, what synod are you? What synod are you? You might be a Lutheran. That takes us to South Dakota trivia. I'm going to use this word, what. What does the hub city and Oz have in common? They have in common a gentleman by the name of Lyman Frank Baum, B-A-U-M. Frank, in around 1888, shortly after he got married, he decided to move to a territory here in South Dakota. And this place was called Hub City. Now they called it Hub City because at that time, 6 railroads that run out of that city. And kind of like a hub, they would go to have different lines. People were coming out west here for 2 things. Homesteading, as I said, and then merchants would be setting up. Frank was coming to Hub City to be a merchant. And while he was there coming from the east, Frank noticed in this little city that was growing, you know, folks, they had 6 newspapers in that town. They had 20 hotels at that time. Well, Frank noticed they didn't have a baseball team. And he was one of the early founders of baseball. And this city I'm speaking of is Aberdeen, South Dakota. As I said, they had 6 newspapers. Well, he then started one of those newspapers, and he loved to write. Well, later, he and his wife, they leave South Dakota. And in doing so, he still continued his love of writing. And so Lyman Frank Baum wrote the book that is beloved by all and even became a movie, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And he attributes to some of the things in the book that he mentions in regards to Kansas of the Aberdeen, South Dakota. So that's what the hub city, Aberdeen, South Dakota, and Oz have in common. Who would have thought, folks? Who would have thought that there would be that connection, fellowship, and the sense of community with good old Frank Baum? What does the Bible say about that? Well, you can imagine maybe a lot there, folks. So let's look at maybe the wisest of all men, Solomon. And in Ecclesiastes 4, verses 9 to 12. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them. Also, if 2 lie down together, they will keep. That's from Solomon. Also, let's look at a Romans account. Just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, which is true. Boy, if you look at me real close, you see that little finger there? That tendon there is frozen. Old injury. I cannot move that. And it indeed affects this member of the body. Particularly if I'm typing, I cannot reach with this. I gotta move my whole head has to move, folks, to use my little finger. So these members do not have all the same function. So in Christ, we, though are many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. Connection, folks, connection. Kind of like this right here. What do you see here, huh? Maybe you have this on your home. Maybe you have it in your office. Hopefully you don't need a lot. But what happens? Ooh. Hey. Or what? They're connected to each other, folks. They're connected. And what? As one leaves to go on and do its function, whether it be what? A happy time, when there's tears of cheerful, or sad times, tears of grief. They what? Lift up the other up. They lift up the other. Boy, that's what connection, fellowship, and community does. What's that? Maybe this would be the church. That's what the church does, folks. Folks, a carrier that we have been connected with and went through the stage of fellowship and community is Prudential. Let me give you an example of Prudential's fellowship. Their representative, Vice President Alan Thornsbachen, he's up in Minneapolis. But Alan will meet us for an event that we go to every year. And indeed, we have connected over the years, and the fellowship that we have and the community that we are with at that event is really something in very special. That thread of community runs all the way through Prudential on their different products and things that they have. And in doing so, folks, I like to say they kind of keep it at a basic level. And I have here just a couple examples here. The first one I'd like to show you is entitled, folks, Tax Advantages of Life Insurance. Now, I understand that a lot of you already know that, and it's almost second nature to you. But in connecting with your client, they may not know that. And so Prudential, I guess, knows that too. And so they bring this piece here. But talks about, again, the tax advantages of life insurance, providing financial protection for those who rely on your client. Its death benefit and its living benefit of cash value. Maybe the need for chronic illness coverage. These things can have, indeed, tax advantages. Are you taking time in connecting with your client to explain these to them? This piece would give you that opportunity. Maybe open the door a little bit. This next one that I have, it highlights, and you've heard me mention this before, folks, the value of policy review. I can't overemphasize the importance of that, because many times in dealing with your clients, notice I use the word clients too. I don't use the word customer. I think of a customer, they purchased by convenience. A client, you've done just what I'm speaking of today. You connected with them. You have fellowship with them. And as such, they become part of your community. Think of your doctor, your personal doctor. Now, maybe it's changed over the years, but there used to be that covenant relationship of a doctor with the patient, you. And again, maybe that's changed, but I very much believe that you need to look at your clients and make sure, am I able to keep that community with them? And one way to do it, folks, is this policy review. Because you don't know sometimes what things has happened, such as, have they added a new family member? Do they have an elderly parent that maybe now is staying with them? So I'm not saying maybe a new baby. I'm saying maybe a parent now is living with them. Maybe a grandbaby has been born. So, a new family member. Think of the word there, okay? Maybe they recently got married or had someone that's part of their immediate family who recently got married. All these different possibilities, folks. And again, this just gives the opportunity to pose the question to them. It asks the question, is your life policy keeping up with your life? Pretty open door question there for you. So a nice piece there, folks. Okay. Then we get to the riders that they offer that some other carriers don't. How about accidental death benefit rider, folks? Very basic. In my days, it was called double indemnity. Do you want double indemnity or triple indemnity? What I'm saying in a simple example would be if I have a $100,000 face amount and I want accidental death of $50,000, then that rider would then pay additional $50,000 in the event of the death certificate saying cause accidental death rider. And we can go down to $25,000. So yeah, a lot of carriers will have waiver premium, but a lot of carriers will not have accidental death benefit. And you know what? If you don't ask them about it, if you don't tell them about it, and you getting connected with them, how are they going to know? They won't. This next rider, it's called the Living Needs Benefit Rider. Now keep in mind, as I'm talking about these riders and these little extra benefits here, be sure to ask your internal wholesaler about that. Okay? But the Living Needs Benefit Rider then looks again of the possibility of needing it for the event of long-term care type of coverage. So this will step in and then help them with, if a nursing home need would be there or the terminal ill, it'll accelerate the death benefit. There's some tax advantages here, folks, because it's accelerating the death benefit, accelerating the death benefit there. And you know what? They're going to keep it so basic here, folks, that it's also on their term insurance. Some carriers will not put a benefit like this on their term insurance. Prudential does. The Living Needs Benefit Rider. So please be sure to ask your internal wholesaler. Say, tell me more about the Living Needs Benefit Rider of Prudential. Oh, by the way, Prudential doesn't try to confuse it when you're talking to the agent on the age that they're going to be using for their premium. They use their actual age. They'll tell you their age. Boom. Well, what's your date of birth in case did you have a recent birthday? If it does, then you could what? Save the age. But they use actual age. They use actual age. That is very, very uncommon nowadays, folks, that's the case. This next one, it maybe goes the next step on that long-term care possible event because it goes more in depth into the chronic illness needs there. But they don't need receipts to be able to get, you might say, reimbursed for this. But this is called then the Benefit Access Rider. Now there is a premium charge for this, but it expands so much more the benefit that your client could have. And it goes with permanent policies. Who am I going to ask about this? Hey, I'd ask my internal wholesaler. You need to ask your internal wholesaler. So those are just some little ways. And there's much more from the marketing side to the whole cycle that your internal wholesaler can share with you on how you can get connected, develop that fellowship, come with that sense of community so that is not a customer, that is a client of yours. Okay, now it's time for recommendations with the theme of being connected, moving on to fellowship, to the community, right? The poem is entitled, Now I Am Blessed by the Fellowship of Man. And the author of this poem is a Philip Winchester. He says, we men and women that inhabit the earth, now I am blessed by the fellowship of man. It's a nice little poem. And the song is entitled, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Now the group that's produced this, and the singer, her name is Grace Slick. Now, Grace Slick was in the group called Jefferson Airplane. And then from Jefferson Airplane, they moved to Jefferson Starship. And then from Jefferson Starship, they moved to Starship. So when this song was made, it was called Starship. We have an associate, an agent, Lori. She reminds me of Grace Slick. When I see her, to me, she is a young, when Grace Slick was young, that's the way that Grace Slick looks. The author of this song was then, his name was Albert Hammond. Now again, the title of the song is what? Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Albert, at the time of writing it, he was going through a bitter, bitter divorce. And it took 7 years, folks, for this divorce to be finalized. Later, he commented that he thinks his former wife and that attorney did it just for spite, because they knew that he was going to marry his girlfriend, the love of his life, when the divorce was final. So it took 7 years. But to end the 7 years, yes, Albert married the love of his life, his girlfriend. And the name of this song is what? Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. The book that I have for you is called Lessons from a Sheepdog. Like some other things, it's based on a true story, folks. And it talks about this young man who grew up in Africa with his father. And at that point in his life, his father was a cattle rancher. But then later, he became a sheep rancher. And he then looked for a border collie. And he was lucky enough to find one. But this border collie was raised by this lady in the city. And the woman was wanting to get rid of the dog because kids would go by on a bicycle and the dog would chase after them and nip on their heels. So he takes in this border collie, and it goes then through the steps of the love of them, becoming connected. And then how through that love and that patience that he has, then it moved on to the fellowship of the two, where the old nose and the head goes on the knee. And then finally, man, they were part of that community taking care of those sheep. So, lessons from a sheepdog. A little thing here on the movies. When I mention the movies, I try to watch them prior to us talking. But a lot of times I'll watch them afterwards. And they've been movies, too, that I've already seen in the past. They kind of come back to me. But this movie came out in 2018. Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin. Now, Christopher Robin in this movie is an adult. He then rediscovers and reconnects with and has fellowship and joins their community of some past boyhood friends. In fact, there's a short little book called The Tao, T-A-O, kind of like philosophy. The philosophy of Winnie the Pooh. But I share with you a couple of things. And so when Christopher Robin goes back and meets his friends from the past, they kind of bring him back full circle on kind of what really is important in life. That what connection, fellowship, and community there. Winnie Pooh says this: people say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing all day. Winnie the Pooh. A hug is always the right size. A hug is always the right size. And you think about that. Doesn't matter who you're hugging, it's always the right size. Again, from Winnie the Pooh. Okay. The things that make me different are the things that make me me. That come from Piglet. Piglet. And then finally, if you live to be 100, I hope to live to be 100 minus 1 day, so that I never have to live a day without you. Man, that's wisdom, folks. Winnie the Pooh. So that takes us then, folks, to then that power phrase. That power phrase comes from my old agent that I follow, Mr. Ben Feldman. He says this, and think of it as this phrase that I've been using of what? Connection, fellowship, community. Most people don't buy because they believe, but because the salesperson believes. Do you believe in your product? Do you believe in the company you represent? Are you able to believe in the community that you have with the financial markets? That's what's then going to come forth so that the client, not customer, believes. The video that I have for you today comes from good old Prudential, The Rock. A couple things to watch for, if you would. How to protect the family in some hard times. And then that C word, community, how they use the phrase, we know with our hands there's a promise made and a promise kept. They know together as that company there are promises made and they know they have promises to keep. And that's then what gives you the confidence to do business with Prudential.
There's an old proverb that says, many hands make light work. One company has always believed that many hands also make good work. It began when Prudential founder John Dryden pioneered life insurance, bringing security and dignity to working families. Through depression and Dust Bowl, Prudential kept farmers afloat and families in their homes. We marched with the nation as it went to war, and then as it paved, powered, and towered its way into the future. These are our hands, our work, heart, and soul. After cities burst into flames, Prudential worked to help put life back together, brick by brick, job by job, promise made by promise kept. Standing tall through '87 and 9/11 and 2008, where waves of shock were met with a response, solid as a rock. These are our hands, our work, heart, and soul. Focusing not just on financial outcomes, but personal ones, like planning for fuller lives when people are living longer than ever, keeping families intact instead of being in tatters, helping protect assets to make fighting an illness a fair fight, assuming risk for companies so they can keep growing, while keeping the pension, a secure retirement, and financial independence as part of the American dream. Finding investment opportunity that turns old downtowns into new boom towns, developing nations into developed economies, and the world's markets into an instrument that makes the world better for all. These are our hands, our work, heart, and soul. In markets where the face of wealth is changing in color, gender, and generation, with advice delivered face to face and heart to heart. In communities invested with attention, optimism, and energy, so that businesses open, music plays, hope springs, and children know that they are always loved. These are our hands, our work, heart, and soul. And these are our people. More than 49,000 professionals worldwide, answering the real-life challenges of millions of others from every background and decade of life, knowing that the greatest return on their effort is strengthening the society we all share. These are our hands, our work, heart, and soul. And we welcome whatever challenge is next.
Did you see then the whole upbringing, that sense, that thread of community all the way through on Prudential there? The phrase that you heard, solid as a rock, and what they keep the family intact was a phrase that I picked on there. In our industry, you could even check in your state on how solid our community and the insurance industry is and how much every day we're able to contribute to your state, to your clients on not only the products that we have to offer, but frankly, folks, in things called like premium taxes and things. We're able to be there. We're a very important part of the state's economy on what you do day in and day out. Because what? God's plan for you is really G. Really, really G. And because you're able to, connect, have fellowship, have your community of clients, blessed are they who ease the pain of misfortune, for they shall be called insurance agents. You take care.